All right, well, 5:33. Let's talk about it briefly. This is northeast corner of the property, and as I've been talking with the developer Brandon Pratt over the past couple of years, weren't quite sure what was going to happen with this section. And he kind of thought, well, maybe assisted living, something like that. I thought, yeah, that might be okay up there. I think it's interesting is he had actually contacted me and thought, well, maybe this would be a good place for that sports complex. And I thought, wow, the scale of this, I didn't think that was a great location. Even though there's industrial to the east, it just felt like we were getting closer to residential, and it just felt like the scale was a little too much. And so that ended up being on the frontage piece next to the Pizza Ranch. So that's kind of how that story ended up. And then we've had a request. We did a good neighbor meeting for some two-family stuff. And I think it's Eisenhower that comes through. Is that right, Dave? John?
Yes.
Okay.
And so this is kind of a second phase. Let me get to, there we go, of just kind of another two-family concept with private streets in here. Normally, we'd want to see two-family homes on a public street. John and I debated about that a little bit. I'm not exactly sure the rationale behind that. But it was a little tighter of a site, so they opted to request a PAD to kind of vary some lot sizes and do it on private streets. But I think it's a better fit for this location, being across the street from some two-family and single-family and apartments. And John, I'm not sure if you had much to add to that or not.
I just add that, part of the idea is private as opposed to public is you get a little closer feel of the units together. So there's still plenty of separation, but it feels a little more like a community as opposed to just a row of zero lots that are, maybe across the street from each other. So, and it allows the traffic to maybe flow within that community before it gets out to the public streets. So, there's two access points, one to the north on 240th, three, sorry. I use two different streets, one to the north onto 240th and two to the south onto Eisenhower that would then funnel out onto Jones Boulevard. So that's the bulk of it. Otherwise, yeah, we've worked, like Chris said, we've kind of worked back and forth on some different options and solutions. And Brandon saw this as an opportunity. It's a good fit with their intent from just on the south side of Eisenhower to put in some similar duplex zero lots. These are comparable, very similar houses. There's two different unit types. There's a smaller 2-story that wraps the perimeter, and then the ones on the inside are a little bit larger ranch style that have some common yards. They're all individually owned in there, but there's some kind of common space that you can have some common areas with your neighbors.
Yeah, that's kind of nice to have that common area.
Yep.
And I suppose with the way the economy's been going and construction costs, these will be more at a price point that people can afford.
They are that played into one of the aspects that we worked through is these are set up such that they can be purchased similar to a zero lot, and which is a big thing right now with the secondary financing or secondary market financing, some other things that they have encountered with banks that doing it as a condo association, it makes it a little more challenging for those homeowners that want to get into these properties to be able to get the financing needed. So structurally, it's kind of set up similar to a zero lot. It's just a little different type of configuration, like Russ said, with access to private streets. And then the streets are owned and maintained by an association, so that to make sure that they're taking care of them. Yeah. But the property themselves would actually, they own a grass, so the maintenance of the lawns and whatnot wouldn't be through an association unless they all got together and chose to do that. But otherwise, they would be responsible to mow and upkeep their properties as necessary.
Yeah, it seems like a good fit.
I was talking to Brad today, John, and we're just not seeing a lot of single family housing developed in this city. But you know, if you look at Coralville for Evergreen Heights, and I don't know if you're involved in that or not, it seems like a lot of houses are going up there, and I just trying to understand why. I don't know if that's a Pulte product or.
So stuff that's going in there was approved. I'll tell you, most of the single family thing development that's taking place right now are on subdivisions or developments that were in the process to be approved 2 and 3 years back. For Evergreen Heights, for example, there, south of Liberty, that's been in the works for quite a while. But the first approval of some of those lots, that when contracts and some purchase agreements were signed, goes back 2 and 3 years, where the market was maybe starting to shift in that direction, but it hadn't fully shifted the way that it has lately. And then, some of the larger family, so that would be smaller. And then some of the larger ones, I know there's the Auburn Ridge that's kind of around the corner as well. Those are it's a little different unit type, and there's some demand for those, but those are bigger lots and a lot bigger houses. So it's, especially, Russ, to your point, the single family, it's hard to get that single family unit building on a property that is financially works right now for a lot of the market. And I know RS9 was, that's the intent, and I think that helps. It certainly, I know that's what's immediately west of here, and it certainly helps. It's still tough. So
yeah, and actually, now that you mentioned that, I did talk to the planner and engineer down there recently, and they said that they're not seeing a lot of those single family permits. So that kind of that makes sense.
And Iowa City, I mean, it's not unique to you guys. It's that way throughout the area. Iowa City's, there's not a lot of single family residences, large or small, and there's a lot of things that go into that as well. And that's true. Even Tiffin's a little different, but even there, some of their stuff is, again, projects that have been in the works. You think of Park Place and some of those are build outs of things that were approved 4 or 5, 6 years ago. So it's finalizing those types of projects versus kicking them off and starting something new with those types of projects.
Yeah, I look at what Brandon's trying to do just west of this site with the single family homes, and a 1,200 square foot home starting in the low 300s. That's I don't know. I have old history, but that's outrageous.
It's tough. You've landed on it precisely. Somebody looks at that, and so I think what they're finding. And I'm not a realtor by any stretch of imagination. If you had a council member that could speak to this probably more directly, but I think what they're finding is that these types of units are the entry level homes that people can maybe get into, and then they go from here into that new, it's maybe the used inventory of the single family or something of that nature. But I think that's the progression that everybody's seeing right now.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that actually in our neighborhood, John. I live on Copper Mountain Drive, and we're in one of the single families, but they're mostly zero lot lines around us. And there's a lot and we bought in 7.5 years ago, and it was considered more of a 55 plus area. But now we've got young families moving in, which is, I think it's great because I like to see the kids running around.
Right.
But yeah, it looks like it's all entry level. The zero lot line is entry level, and that's what people can afford right now because real estate's gotten so expensive.
Yeah, and I you hit on something that's a key point that I think everybody clamors, and understandably so, clamors for, we need affordable single family housing, and there's a true component to that, but I think where that market needs to occur is, and seems to be occurring now, is it's the secondary market on some of those homes that are 10 years old or whatever it is, where those people are moving out into something else, and you have somebody that goes from a 0 into your type of unit, or a new buyer that goes into your type of unit. And then you do end up with that nice mix of, maybe it was originally intended as a 55 plus, but you end up with that kind of nice mix of families in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And that happened organically, as opposed to, something that was planned. It's just an organic way of how that occurred within the natural housing market.
Right.
Well, I'm going to assume that no one else is going to jump on at this point, and we'll go ahead and call this meeting to a close, and we'll put this on the agenda for September the 5th, right after Labor Day.
All right,
Perfect.
great. Okay.
So if I don't see y'all till then, have a good holiday and stay safe.
You too.